Arizona knows how to keep a secret. This is a place where cactus grows at the bottom of a mountain and spruce forest grows at the top, and where death does not only come with claws. Animals live here whose behavior makes even the biggest predators back up and rethink things. In these mountains, the rules are not written by strength. They are written by nerve and by cunning. Welcome to the Sky Islands. Out here, the survivor is not the one who is stronger. It is the one who moves first. Let's get one thing straight right away. Southern Arizona is not just desert. It is something closer to a mistake in the system. A biological paradox that honestly should not exist. Picture it. You are walking up a slope. There is a saguaro cactus over your shoulder. It is 100 degrees, and 2 hours later, you are standing in a fir and aspen forest with snow on the ground. This is the only region on the continent where northern mountain forest slams directly into subtropical Mexican country.
On the same mountain, you can find a black bear and a jaguar, elk on one slope, tropical parrots on the other. That collision creates insane competition. Predator density here is off the scale. Why? Because there is food, but getting it is a serious problem. The country is what people call the Madrean Archipelago, about 40 separate mountain ranges standing up out of the desert like islands out of the ocean. Each one is isolated, each one has its own animals, and each range is basically a trap because to get from one to the next, an animal has to cross miles of open desert with no cover at all. Piñon nuts and acorns are the currency here. That is the whole economy. No nuts, no javelina, and no deer. No deer, and the lions go hungry. The entire system hangs by a thread, and that thread breaks a lot more often than people think. Winter up in these mountains is no joke. Snow does not always get deep, but the wind coming across those ridges pulls every bit of heat out of you. And under those conditions, an animal cannot just look for food. It has to keep checking behind itself. Visibility in the oak thickets and manzanita is maybe 30 feet. That is a perfect place for an ambush. You walk through there, and it feels like something is behind every trunk. And most of the time, you are right. People who spend their lives in this country say you get a constant feeling of being watched from behind. It wears on you. The animals here are jumpy and tense. There is none of the relaxed confidence you see in lions on an African plain. Out here, everything is wound tight. And in that green grinder, it is not only the big cats that matter. The hooved animals carry the whole thing. Elk, mule deer, and the little Coues whitetail. They are the fuel for the machine. A bull elk is a genuinely impressive animal, and when the rut is on, his bugle carries for miles and sounds like something out of the end of the world. But even a giant like that is just a meal out here if he stops paying attention for 1 second. These mountains do not forgive mistakes, not one. But the worst part is not the cold, and it is not hunger. The worst part is the neighbors. These ranges are overloaded with predators of every size, and they cannot stand each other. This is not a cartoon where everybody gets along. This is a crowded apartment building where every tenant wants the others gone, preferably permanently. Obviously, we cannot talk about this country without talking about him, the mountain lion, the biggest cat in North America outside the tropics. A big male can push 200 pounds of pure muscle. When you watch clips online, it looks like nothing can touch him. A killing machine that takes down anything that moves. But the reality is a little different. It is harder and a lot less glamorous. Being a mountain lion in these mountains is close to a curse. He has to eat, and he has to eat constantly. To keep an animal that size running, he needs to kill something substantial about every week to 10 days, and more often than that when he has kittens. And a successful hunt happens maybe once in every 6 or 7 attempts. Picture it. You climb 1,000 feet of broken rock. You burn an enormous amount of energy. You go in, and the deer sees you at the last second and is gone over a ledge you cannot follow. Or a javelina turns around and comes at you. A lion here is not some relaxed king. He is a permanent wanderer. A single male can hold a territory of more than 150 square miles. He is always moving, always patrolling, and anything that ends up in the wrong place at the wrong time is in trouble. But there is a catch. Lions here live in a constant war, and not only with their food. They hate coyotes. Where there is an established lion, coyotes get thin on the ground fast because he will kill one and not even eat it. Biologists have a polite name for that. It looks like clearing out a rival crew. And even this animal has enemies, and I do not mean people. There are situations where a lion backs off, where he works out that the risk of getting hurt is higher than the value of the meal, because an injury out here is a sentence, infection, weakness, no more hunting, and in 2 weeks the ghost of the mountain is a carcass being picked over by ravens. So the crown does not sit as firmly on his head as you think. There are animals out here that will absolutely knock that crown sideways, or at least push back hard enough that the cat thinks twice. And that brings us to the more interesting characters, the ones that do not have his size but make up for it with attitude, or with what looks like a complete absence of self-preservation, the javelina, also called the collared peccary. It does not sound very impressive. A lot of people think it is a walking pork chop just waiting to be eaten. That is a big mistake.
And behind it, in the same country, there is something worse: feral hogs. A grown feral hog can go past 200 pounds, but the weight is not the point. The point is what is under the bristle. Boars grow a thick plate of dense tissue across the chest and shoulders that is closer to shoe leather than skin, a couple of inches thick in an old animal. That is armor, and it grew there for a reason. And the tusks are self-sharpening. They keep grinding against each other every time the animal opens and closes its mouth, so they stay like a chisel for life. When a boar fights, he does not bite. He swings from below and drives upward. Lions know it. An experienced cat will not go head-on at a big, healthy boar. Not ever. He will look for a young one, a sick one, or something at the edge of the group, because a straight fight with a full-grown boar is a coin flip, and he does not get to lose that flip even once. Javelina work differently.
They are smaller, 40 to 60 pounds, but they live in herds, and that changes everything. Collective defense. If the herd senses a threat, they bunch up, put the young in the middle and the adults on the outside, facing out. Try walking into that. It is a wall of noise and teeth and a smell that hangs in the air for a long time afterward. And they are not stupid. They have learned to use the country. They push into the thickest brush and cactus they can find, where a big cat cannot maneuver, and a javelina goes through that stuff like it is not there. Summer is hard on them because of water, and winter at elevation is hard because of cold. And in those pinch periods, the real dramas play out. If a lion catches a javelina alone in a wash with steep sides, it is over. But when they get turned around and the herd comes back, there are documented cases of a cat leaving the area with injuries it did not survive. That is a draw nobody wanted. So much for the walking pork chop. If the hog wins on armor, our next character wins on pure unpredictability. This is the one that other animals, including much bigger ones, quietly go around. Meet the black bear. Arizona has a few thousand of them, and almost all of them live in exactly these mountain ranges. A black bear is smaller than a grizzly, sometimes by half. But if a grizzly is a heavy tank that is sure of itself, the black bear is something else. It is a climber and an opportunist, and it is very hard to predict. First, it lives in trees more than people realize. Picture yourself walking through oak woodland looking at the ground for tracks, and 30 feet above your head there is an animal watching you go by. Black bears climb constantly. They feed up there, they sleep up there, they put cubs up there when something is wrong. Their claws are short and strongly curved specifically for gripping bark. Second, the temperament.
A black bear is more nervous than a grizzly, and that is exactly why it can be more dangerous in a bad situation. It is the paradox of fear. A grizzly will often make a lot of noise, stand up, bluff, and give you a chance to leave. A black bear that has decided it is cornered does not always do that. It dens in hollow trees, in rock crevices, in cavities under boulder piles. And in these mountains, it does not have things easy either. Lions will kill bear cubs when the opportunity is there. If the cub is up the tree fast enough, it is fine, because a big cat is not a good climber on thin branches. If it is not fast enough, that is that. But it goes the other way too. A big old bear will absolutely take a kill away from a lion, especially a young cat or an injured one. It just walks in and the cat leaves. That is the constant seesaw out here. Whoever is weaker today is dinner today. In these mountains, there is no such thing as absolute safety, even at the top of a 100-foot pine.
Now, forget the bears and the cats for a minute. Some of the most effective hunters in this country weigh about 12 pounds and travel in gangs. The coati. They look like somebody designed them for a children's show. Long, striped tail held straight up in the air, a pointed, flexible nose, bright eyes. Cute. And then you watch a band of them work through a canyon and you understand what you are actually looking at. Coatis do not operate alone. The females and the young move in bands, sometimes 20 animals or more, and they sweep a slope like a search team. They go through the leaf litter, up the trunks, into every crack in the rock, along every ledge. Anything they find gets eaten. Insects, lizards, snakes, eggs, nestlings, small mammals, fruit, anything left over from somebody else's kill. They can climb better than almost anything their size. Their ankles rotate so they can come down a trunk head first, which lets them go into places nothing else can follow. And they are not intimidated. A band of coatis will hold its ground against a bobcat and make enough noise and commotion that the cat usually decides the whole thing is not worth it. Their metabolism runs hot and they have to keep eating, so the search never really stops. What is remarkable is how few things bother hunting them. Between the numbers, the noise, and the teeth, most predators find something easier. A lion will take one, but a lion will take almost anything. The coati is proof that in these mountains, size is not the deciding factor. What decides things is nerve, coordination, and the fact that they never stop. But if you think that is the end of the list, you are wrong. There are animals here that came through the Ice Age, and there are animals that turn hunting into a game of hide and seek, where the bet is your life. And there is one animal whose absence in these mountains is louder than any sound it could make: the wolf. We are used to the idea that in any northern system, the wolf is the cleanup crew, the top of the order, the thing that keeps everything else honest. Not here. In Arizona, the Mexican gray wolf is very nearly a ghost. And that is not an accident. They were shot, trapped, and poisoned out of the Southwest completely by the middle of the last century. The last few were gone from the wild here decades ago. Everything alive today came from a tiny handful of animals that were captured and bred in captivity, and the entire wild population in Arizona and New Mexico is somewhere in the low hundreds. Every one of them is tracked. Many of them wear collars. That is what is left. So the wolves that are out there live like gorillas. They stay in the high country and the roadless blocks, away from the places where they get into trouble. And they are not the top of anything. Mountain lions kill wolf pups when they find them. Coyotes, which exploded across this country the moment the wolves were removed, now occupy the space the wolves used to have and fight them for it. And here is the part people miss. When wolf numbers go up, the country changes. Elk stop standing in the same meadow all season. The willows and cottonwoods along the creeks come back. When wolf numbers go down, all of that reverses. It is a permanent seesaw. The lion is the dictator that runs these mountains with a closed fist. The wolf is the opposition that could take the whole thing over given the chance. And the animals in the middle do not benefit from either arrangement. A lion kills quickly and once. A pack works differently, so it is not obvious which of those two kings is harder on the country, but the fact remains. Out here, the gray shadow of the forest is the one hiding in the corners. If the lion is a hammer, the jaguar is a scalpel, and it is the rarest large animal on this continent north of the border. There are so few that every single one is known by name. Researchers identify them by the pattern of rosettes on their coats, the same way you would use a fingerprint, and they name them. In the last 30 years, the number of jaguars confirmed in Arizona can be counted on your hands. Every one of them has been a male, working north out of Mexico, crossing that open desert between the ranges to get here. A jaguar is built completely differently from a lion, shorter, heavier, with a much wider head and the strongest bite of any cat in the Americas, strong enough to go straight through the shell of a turtle. But in these mountains, it is not the biggest thing walking, and it has no interest in a fight, so it became invisible. It moves through the canyons without breaking a stick. It stays in the roughest, steepest, most broken rock in the range, the kind of ground where nothing large wants to follow. It does not roar, and it does not announce anything. Silence is the armor.
And a jaguar's life here is close to impossible.
This is the far northern edge of the species. The country is dry, the prey is scattered, and the routes back and forth to the breeding population in Mexico are getting harder to use every year. A male can spend years in these mountains and never meet a female because there are none. He is a resident of a place that cannot give him a future. Being the most beautiful animal in the range means being the most fragile one. Now let's talk about an animal that appears to have no fear response at all. The American badger. It looks like something that was designed in a hurry. Low, wide, flat, with a black and white striped face and legs that are far too heavy for its size. It weighs maybe 20 pounds. The attitude weighs considerably more. A badger is a universal soldier. Its jaws crush bone. Its claws are 2 inches of curved, bone-hard hook, and it moves dirt with them at a rate that does not look possible.
If a badger decides to go down, it is gone into the ground in under a minute, and the hole it leaves behind will swallow a truck tire, and it is genuinely dangerous to bother. Badgers will hold a carcass against a coyote and sometimes against much larger animals. It has scent glands and it will use them. Its hide is thick and hangs loose on the body, which means that when something bites it, the badger can turn around inside its own skin and bite back. Very few predators want that transaction twice. It has one of the strangest relationships in North American wildlife, too. Badgers and coyotes hunt together, not by accident and not rarely. The coyote covers the surface while the badger works the burrows, and ground squirrels that bolt from one get taken by the other. Both animals do better together than apart, and researchers have watched them travel side by side for miles. A badger has no home range in the tidy sense, no friends, and nothing out here it is truly afraid of.
We have talked a lot about the hunters, but who feeds this whole crowd of killers? The main prize in this lottery is the elk, and this is not just a deer. This is 600 or 700 pounds of animal with antlers that can spread past 4 feet. Elk in Arizona hold mostly to the high country, the ponderosa pine and the meadows along the rim, coming down when the snow pushes them. A lot of predators look at an elk like a loaded table. That table can also turn around and put you in the ground. An elk's front hooves are the weapon, and it strikes with them fast and accurately, straight down and forward. One connection is enough to break a coyote or seriously hurt a lion. Yes, lions hunt elk. It is always a risk and it is always a decision. This is a fight between heavy animals, and the cat only wins it by getting on before the elk understands what is happening. In winter, the elk slows down. Deep snow makes running hard, but those long legs let it stand where a coyote is swimming.
So it stops running. It backs into thick timber or against a deadfall so nothing can get behind it, and it faces whatever came.
Predators hate approaching from the front. They circle, they test, they wait. It becomes a long, cold siege. An elk is a monument to stubbornness. In summer, it will stand chest deep in a stock tank for hours getting away from flies. In a bad winter, it will strip bark and eat things with almost no value in them. Its life is a constant balance on the edge of running out. It has to put away an enormous volume of forage every day just to hold its own temperature, and it has to be ready for a fight the entire time. If an elk goes down and cannot get back up, that is the end of the story. If the elk is a tank and the lion is a general, then the cottontail is the private that gets sent out first. And this is where the whole pyramid actually stands. The desert cottontail and the black-tailed jackrabbit are the food supply for essentially everything in Arizona.
Lions eat them. Bobcats eat them. Coyotes, foxes, badgers, rattlesnakes, great horned owls, red-tailed hawks, golden eagles, roadrunners, ringtails, every single one of them. Even the loose dogs on the edge of a town go after them. A cottontail cannot fight. It cannot climb. Its only real defenses are its ears, its eyes, and an ability to sit absolutely still.
Its eyes are set so far to the sides that it can see almost all the way around itself without turning its head, and its ears are working constantly, which in the desert also serves as a radiator dumping heat out of its body. So why have they not disappeared? Because there are so many of them. They are extraordinarily productive. A female can raise several litters in a year, and the young are ready to breed within months. Nature stamps them out in volume, specifically so the top of the chain has something to eat. It is harsh, but it works. A jackrabbit takes a different approach.
It is not a rabbit at all. It is a hare, born with its eyes open and ready to run within minutes.
It does not use a burrow. It relies on speed and geometry. On a straight line, it can hit 40 miles an hour and clear 10 feet in a jump. But it does not just run. It cuts hard sideways, doubles back along its own line, and then launches off to the side to break the scent trail completely. There are no walls out on the flats, so a jackrabbit builds them out of its own confusing tracks. Without these unglamorous animals, half the predators in this state would not make it through a dry year. That is their enormous and slightly sad role. We have seen the ground. Now let's go into the water, because Arizona has rivers, and in those rivers there used to be a monster, the Colorado pike minnow. Almost nobody outside a fisheries office knows this animal exists, and it is one of the strangest stories in North America. This was the largest minnow on the planet, not a small fish with a funny name.
A predator that reached 6 feet long and weighed close to 80 pounds. Old settlers along the river called it the white salmon and hauled them out with pitchforks. It was the top of the food chain in that water, the same way a lion is on the mountain. It is a living fossil, a fish that evolved in a warm, wild, silt-heavy river that flooded every spring and dropped to almost nothing every summer. It could handle water that would kill most fish. It ate anything it could get its mouth around, and there are accounts of large ones taking small mammals and birds off the surface. And it is gone from this stretch of the world, not because of predators, because the river it evolved for does not exist anymore. The dams cooled the water down, held back the floods, and stopped the silt. The pike minnow needs warm, moving, seasonal water to spawn, and now the lower river is a cold, clear, steady channel. It survives in a few upstream reaches, and it is being reintroduced by hand. What lives in that water now is a different monster.
The flathead catfish, brought in from the east. It gets to 50 pounds and more. It lies on the bottom in the deep holes, and it is close to blind in murky water because it does not need eyes. It hunts with the barbels around its mouth, feeling for the vibration of anything moving nearby. Then it opens a mouth the size of a bucket and flares its gills at the same moment, and the vacuum takes everything in. It has eaten its way through the native fish of the Gila and the salt, and there is no putting that back. There is also the razorback sucker, a strange, humpbacked native that can live past 40 years. Some of the fish still swimming out there were adults before most of us were born. They are still spawning. The problem is that almost nothing they spawn survives, because the water is now full of things that were never supposed to be here. Come back onto the bank.
At night, when the canyons fill with cold air, the hunter that runs this country comes out, the great horned owl. This is a heavy bird, 5 pounds of it, with a wingspan close to 5 feet and a grip strength that is genuinely startling for its size. It is the most widespread and the most adaptable owl on the continent, and it will take almost anything. Rabbits, skunks, other owls, young foxes. It is one of the very few animals that regularly kills and eats skunks, apparently because it has almost no sense of smell. Its flight is completely silent. The leading edges of the flight feathers are broken up into a soft comb that kills the turbulence, so it does not make a sound going through the air. Its face works as a dish, funneling the smallest noise into ears set at different heights on the 2 sides of the skull, which gives it a 3-dimensional fix on where something is in the dark. Up in the high canyons, where old fir and pine stand in the shade, there is a rarer relative, the Mexican spotted owl. It needs old, dense, uncut forest with a canyon in it, and there is not much of that left. It is listed as threatened, and its future in this state comes down to whether those specific canyons keep standing. And at the other end of the scale, down in the desert, is the elf owl. It is the smallest owl in the world, about the weight of a golf ball, and it nests inside holes in saguaro cactus that woodpeckers cut out years earlier. The cactus seals the wound with a hard shell, and that shell becomes an apartment that gets used by one bird after another for decades. In daylight, the sky belongs to something else. Arizona has a bald eagle population unlike anywhere else in the country. These birds nest on cliff ledges and in cottonwoods along the Salt and the Verde, in a desert, in temperatures that would cook eggs in an ordinary nest. So they shifted their entire calendar.
They lay in the middle of winter, months earlier than eagles anywhere else, so the young are out of the nest before the real heat arrives. There are only a few dozen breeding pairs. Every nest is known and watched. Now, you have seen videos of cute house cats. Forget it. Arizona has a cat that will rearrange your expectations, the bobcat. At a glance, it looks like an oversized tabby with a stub of a tail. It weighs 15 to 30 pounds. That is where the resemblance stops. This is a wild animal that does not domesticate, ever, and it is the most successful predator in the state by a wide margin. There are far more bobcats out here than lions, and you will almost never see one. A bobcat is an ambush specialist. It will sit without moving for hours on a ledge above a game trail, exactly the color of the rock behind it, waiting. Its jump is explosive, and it can cover 10 feet from a standing start. It takes rabbits, rodents, birds, young javelina, and, when it has to, animals considerably bigger than itself. But it has a weakness, and it is the same one as the jaguar: deep, soft snow. A bobcat's feet are small for its weight, and it breaks through. So, in a heavy winter, at elevation, the cats come down toward the lower country, toward the washes and the roads and the edges of towns, and that is exactly where they run into lions and coyotes and vehicles. A bobcat's life is a permanent effort to not become somebody else's meal, and the attitude matches. Cornered, it will come at a dog 3 times its size without a second of hesitation. Its far rarer relative also lives out here in tiny numbers, the ocelot. A handful of them have been photographed in these mountains over the past 15 years, working north out of Mexico the same way the jaguars do, and for the same reason. This is the northern edge of a tropical animal's range, and the edge is thinning. Now, let's talk about the strangest hoofed animal on the continent, the pronghorn. Most people call it an antelope. It is not an antelope. It is not related to anything. Every other member of its family died out, and this animal is the only one left, the last representative of a branch that goes back millions of years. Look at what it has. Horns that branch, which nothing else does, made of fused hair over a bone core, and it sheds the outer sheath every single year, which also nothing else does. Enormous eyes set high on the skull, giving it a field of view of nearly 300 degrees and the ability to pick out movement several miles away. A windpipe and heart and lungs oversized for its body. And it is the fastest land animal in North America. It holds 55 miles an hour, and it can hold a high speed for miles, not seconds. Nothing alive on this continent can catch it. Nothing even comes close. So why is it built that way? Because the thing it was built to escape from is extinct. There was an American cheetah here during the Ice Age, and the pronghorn is still running from it 10,000 years after the last one died. But this animal has one enormous flaw. It does not jump. It evolved on open ground where there was nothing to jump over, so when a pronghorn meets a fence, it will not go over it. It goes under, or it runs along it until it finds a gap, or it does not get through at all. In a state cut up by fencing and highways, the fastest animal on the continent can be stopped by a wire 3 feet off the ground. And in the southwest corner of this state lives the Sonoran pronghorn, a desert subspecies that got down to a few dozen animals not that long ago. It is being brought back by hand, one enclosure and one release at a time, in country so dry that in a bad year the animals simply run out of green plants to get water from. You think these mountains are only fur and teeth? Not even close.
Underneath your boots, in the rocks and the leaf litter, there is a completely different kind of danger: snakes. Arizona has more species of rattlesnake than any other state in the country, 13 of them, and the most serious is the western diamondback. This is a pit viper. Between the eye and the nostril on each side, there is a small opening that senses heat, and it works well enough that the snake builds an accurate picture of a warm animal in total darkness. It sees you as a shape made of temperature, and a diamondback does not always leave. A lot of snakes will slide off before you ever know they were there. This one will often hold its ground, pull into a coil, lift the tail, and start the rattle, which is a stack of loose keratin segments knocking against each other fast enough to blur. That sound is a warning, and it is meant to be understood. If it is ignored, the strike comes, and it is faster than you can react to.
The bite causes serious tissue damage, and it needs a hospital. Out in this country, far from a road, that is a genuine problem. There is also a constrictor here worth knowing: the gopher snake, which people also call a bull snake. It is one of the largest snakes in the state, past 6 feet, and it is not venomous at all. But it has learned a trick. When something threatens it, it flattens its head into a triangle, hisses hard, and vibrates its tail in dry leaves, and the sound it makes is close enough to a rattle that most animals and most people back away. It kills by constriction, and it eats an enormous number of rodents. People used to keep them around barns deliberately for exactly that reason, and killing one out of confusion is one of the more common mistakes made in this state. In winter, the snakes disappear. Where do they go? Into dens.
Deep in rock crevices below the frost line, dozens and sometimes hundreds of snakes gather in the same shelter, often several species mixed together, and wait out the cold packed against each other. The same dens get used generation after generation for decades. In spring, they come out over a few warm days all at once. These cold-blooded animals are a critical part of the system, and they hold the rodent population in check better than anything else out here. But standing near a den when it opens will get your attention. We have covered the water and the ground. Now go underneath it, because some of the most important construction in Arizona happens below the surface. The prairie dog is not a dog, and it is not a decoration. It is an engineer. Their towns are genuine underground cities, with separate chambers for sleeping and for raising young, with drainage, with listening posts, and with ventilation built into the mounds at each entrance, shaped so that air is pulled through the tunnel system by the wind above. Colonies can cover hundreds of acres and hold thousands of animals, and they have one of the most complex alarm systems ever documented in a mammal. Researchers who have studied their calls found that the animals appear to encode information about what kind of threat is coming, roughly how big it is and how fast it is moving, and that neighboring colonies understand each other. A hawk gets a different call from a coyote, and the response is different too. That whole city exists because everything else wants to eat them. Badgers dig them out. Coyotes wait at the exits. Rattlesnakes go straight down the tunnels. Golden eagles and ferruginous hawks work them from above. And critically, the burrows they abandon become housing for a long list of other animals. Burrowing owls move in and nest underground. Rattlesnakes winter there. Rabbits shelter there. Take the prairie dogs out, and a dozen other species lose their homes at the same time. There is another underground specialist here that is even stranger: the kangaroo rat. This animal never drinks, not occasionally, never. It gets every molecule of water it needs out of dry seeds, and its kidneys are so efficient that almost nothing is wasted. It plugs its burrow entrance during the day to trap humidity from its own breathing. It moves in enormous hops on 2 legs, and it can change direction in mid-air, which is why it survives in a place where every single thing overhead is looking for it. In the roughest places in this state, on cliff faces where nothing sensible would go, lives an animal that is barely there: the desert bighorn sheep. A bighorn is a master of standing still. It can hold a position on a ledge over a 200-foot drop for hours without moving, the exact gray of the rock behind it. That is the defense. Predators find things by detecting movement, and the sheep does not move. If it is seen, what it does next is hard to believe. It comes down a face that looks vertical, hitting ledges a few inches wide, and its hooves are the reason.
The outer edge is hard, but the pad in the middle is soft and slightly concave, so it works like a suction cup on rock. Nothing else in this country moves that way. But there is one enemy a cliff does not protect you from: the golden eagle. A golden eagle patrols this same rock, and lambs are exactly what it is looking for. It does not have to carry one away. It only has to knock one off the ledge. Water is the other problem. In a dry summer, a bighorn herd may be tied to 2 or 3 permanent tanks in an entire range, and every predator in that country knows precisely where those are.
Which means the animal has to walk to the one place it is guaranteed to be hunted every few days, all summer, or die of thirst. These are quiet, watchful animals hanging on by an extremely narrow margin, and in the most literal way possible. Now let's look at the foundation the whole pyramid stands on. You will be surprised, but the life of a mountain lion depends on a bird about the size of your hand and on a squirrel with tufted ears. It all comes down to piñon nuts and acorns. That is the gold of this country. That is fat and that is energy going into the winter. The piñon jay is the key. It is a dusty blue, loud, extremely social bird, and in a good year, it goes into an obsession. It fills its throat with piñon seeds, flies off and hides them, and one bird will make thousands of separate caches in a single autumn. Its spatial memory is remarkable, and it finds most of them again months later, but it forgets some. And the ones it forgets are exactly how new piñon trees end up on ground where there were none. The same thing happens with acorns, moved around by jays and by the Abert squirrel, that heavy tassel-eared squirrel that lives almost entirely on ponderosa pine and moves its seed around as a side effect of trying to eat it. And that is where the whole system hangs, because bears know about caches, and so do javelina and turkeys and every rodent out there. A bear going into the fall needs to find that fat, and finding a good piñon crop is the difference between a bear that dens in good condition and a bear that does not. Now run the chain. A bad piñon year means no fat for javelina, deer, and turkeys. Fewer of those means a hungry winter for lions and bobcats, and a mast failure is not rare. It is normal. These trees produce heavily only every few years, and in a drought they can skip entirely.
All this machinery, all these claws and teeth is sitting on top of the seed production of a short, scrubby tree and the memory of a bird that has been declining sharply for decades. Now we come to the hardest edge of this country, where the mountains meet the towns. This is a friction zone, and the main casualties here are dogs. To a mountain lion, a dog in a yard is not a companion animal. It is the easiest, most predictable meal available. Lions that are old, injured, or simply pushed out of good territory by a bigger male drift down toward the houses on the edge of a town, and they take dogs off patios and out of yards without making a sound. The owner comes out in the morning and finds a collar and a line of tracks going back into the brush. This conflict is not going away. Towns keep expanding up into the canyons where the deer trails already were, and the deer come to the watered lawns, and the lions follow the deer. That is the whole equation. There is no villain in it. And there is the other side of it. Dogs that get loose and go feral form groups and become their own problem, running deer, killing fawns and calves, and competing with the actual native predators. That is an unnatural pressure, and people created it. These mountains deal with those dogs the way they deal with everything else. A lion does not tolerate competition. A meeting between a loose dog and the animal that actually owns the canyon only ends one way. That is the border between two worlds, and it is not a clean line. We have seen every actor in this thing, but to understand what the Sky Islands actually are, you have to see one day. A day when all of these lives get pulled into a single knot. The day of the big hunt.